to get us on track. I'll pick myself up here.
Ooh, look at that.
And that's a German one, right? Be careful if you're buying the German Blu-ray, because there's a cut one. But the one in the red cover, which when you look inside, because that's the reversible cover. Thankfully, they've got a reversible cover, because for anybody who doesn't know, big up again. That's what that's what the rating's like on a German Blu-ray and DVD. It's like huge. I'll show it again once we get going, because you know what I'm like with the super edits, and I edit all this together as a seamless 20-minute extravaganza with all whiz-bang stuff.
This is how unprepared I am. I forgot to dig out. I've got a pre-cert Betamax tape of Maniac somewhere that I've got to dig out. And I've also got the Anchor Bay limited edition tin signed by Caroline Munro.
So the pre-cert Betamax one, was that legitimately released?
Yep, a legitimate release.
Right. Because again, I picked Maniac from the book in my local video store, and it was very much a case of like, oh, I'll have that one there, thank you very much. I changed the thumbnail for this because I had to get Ms. Monroe, and also I thought it was more Facebook friendly.
Yes, I would go with that, definitely.
Yeah, definitely more Facebook friendly. Since we started doing this Video Nasties piece, something's become apparent. We're doing films that aren't actually Video Nasties or not legitimately Video Nasties, and this is another one. Much like the New York Ripper, this was not actually on the list. This was not actually a Video Nasty because, again, it was too nasty to make the list.
Yes.
Yeah, so I believe banned outright in the UK. Is that right?
Yes, and I believe it is still... it is banned here in its uncut version, but there is a cut down version that is occasionally available. I haven't seen it on Blu-ray. I've only ever seen it on DVD, and it's so hard to come by because no one wants a cut version of this movie. Because a cut version of this movie, there's literally nothing to it.
I don't know the legality of owning versions that you import. I think it's legal.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it's legal. It's just the distribution of them that's illegal. So the publishing and distribution of. So when you buy something in for like an uncut version from Germany, for instance, which is more sensorial than the UK, funnily enough, and yet you can get this straight from Germany. So yeah, it's still. Yeah, still it feels good to own something that's kind of banned in the UK. Now I saw this again. It was obviously a pirate copy that I saw, and it was on probably a second or third generation VHS from the video store, rented from the video store, from the mighty book of banned movies that they managed to get into the country. And I guess that when I first saw this, I didn't really like it much. Okay, so I didn't really like it much. Again, it was like a really grungy VHS that I watched, but I've seen it a few times since, and when we talk about it, I'll let you know what I think about it now. But initially, it was very much like the New York Ripper. It was a film that I didn't really like that much, and I think that's probably something to do with the grindhouse qualities of the movie. So when did you first see it?
I first saw this movie about 20 years ago now. And once again, it was a similar sort of thing as you. I went to my local video store and had a very nice conversation with the guy behind the counter. It was like, so, do you know how I can get hold of Maniac? And he was like, yes, I do. Whilst he bought out the bootleg of it, that was like a second generation copy, and he was like, it's only £5. And I was like, oh dear, take my money. Because it was one of those movies that, like, when I was first starting to get into like video nasties and stuff, like I was in like my early teenage years, but I didn't really hear about Maniac till later on. It was shortly after The Exorcist had finally been released here in its full uncut glory, and the same with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And you had places like Channel 4 were doing documentaries on like ban the sadist videos, and there was one called Fear, Panic, and Censorship. And they interviewed William Lustig, the director of this movie, and he was talking about how someone tried to import the soundtrack to the movie from America, and the police confiscated it when it came to this country because they were so worried about the fact that it was the soundtrack to a banned movie. And during that, they played the infamous clip with Tom Savini and the head explosion,
right?
Which I because I taped that documentary, I just rewound that clip over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how they used to show you the stuff that was going to corrupt you in these documentaries.
Yeah,
and it's like, really, are you shocked and corrupted by this? And you're like, no.
Yeah, it was absolutely mad. And then there was this box set that came out from Anchor Bay called Box of the Band, and it had the Fear, Panic, and Censorship documentary on it. So I watched that again. And that's what led me to go to like my little video store and be like, yeah, I need to get this movie. It's called Maniac. Do you have a copy? Yes, I do. And then I took it home and I watched it and I walked away from it and I was kind of conflicted. I was like, I want to like it, but I'm not sure if I do. And I hadn't really watched it again until the other night, to be honest with you.
Really? Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, because I've seen it. I think 4 times all the way through, and I watched it today. I kind of like the movie now. It doesn't have the same sort of like shock value that it used to have.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you mentioned music because we're going to talk about that later. Because I've got, I've been doing what I normally do when I'm on with Stato, and I've done a couple of slides. I like the cover there on the right is the one that I remember. That was the one that was on the video that I rented. Right. It was probably because it was easy to photocopy and have that look. But the poster itself caused a lot of problems because it's a terrific and very kind of visceral poster, and it gets across the whole kind of shock element of the movie quite well. William Lustig, the director, Bill Lustig, because I think a lot of what this movie has going for it comes from him and his sensibility. And I know that at the time he was wanting to make a movie that competed with films like Halloween, because that whole wave was just about to start because Halloween was out before he made this. And I know that he took Caroline Munro to see Halloween before filming this to say to her, this is the kind of movie we're making. It was not really, but you understand what he was doing there. This is not like Halloween, but I think what he was doing was he was trying to harness in some way what they were doing in Italy with the giallo, or what you were talking about the other week with the neo giallo. I think he was trying to bring that to American cinema. You can tell that by some of the direction in the movie, some of the camera movements and things that he's doing. But it's all wrapped up in a really kind of grungy, dirty, quite real kind of 1970s New York look and feel. I think it's made in 1980, but it's got that 70s sensibility to it.
Yeah.
And it just, you feel dirty after watching the movie. You feel grimy, like physically, as if you've been in the rooms with these people. I think the only other film that I can think of off the top of my head that's kind of a cult movie that has that feel was Basket Case.
Yes, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, it's that sense that there's a real kind of like aura about the world that the characters live in. And my main take from that is it comes from William Lustig, and he's the main man at Blue Underground, isn't he? He's the guy that essentially releases all these movies and releases all his own movies in really good kind of like versions. But he started out, because I've got some of his greatest hits up here, but one of his first movies was The Violation of Claudia. His first 2 movies in the 70s were pornos.
Yes, I was going to say, like, it's part of if I remember correctly, The Violation of Claudia kind of fell into the XXX roughy kind of genre or subgenre. Yeah,
I think so. It was at that time when they were still making porn movies to be released in the cinema as if they were actually going concerns at actual real movies. Yeah, that was a thing, guys, for a very small kind of time in the 70s. But the feel in Maniac has got the feel that you would expect from somebody coming from that background. He's brought it with him. It's there. William Lustig, or Bill Lustig, pretty much on tour with us. You, like me, didn't think much of it originally, but now your opinion's changed. So what was it that kind of changed your opinion with it?
I think what helped me change my opinion of it was taking that understanding of the fact that it's more of a character study than it is a story. And it's rarely that we see that in mainstream movies or even some of the indie kind of movies. Normally character pieces are kind of saved for like art house movies or the real underground stuff. So seeing someone like William Lustig and working with Joe Spinell to create this character piece where there's a lot more depth to it than we actually realize. I think like when I first saw it, because I was quite young, I was seeing it for the shock value. I wanted to see that head explosion again, because when I first saw it in that documentary, it blew me away. It took me aback. And of course, I felt like, oh, I want that again. And I want it in context of the movie. But because I'd already seen it a couple of times and rewound it over and over again, by the time that scene pops up, which is quite early into the movie, it that shock kind of goes away. So I wasn't really looking at the deeper kind of subtext to the movie, but watching it now, like so many years later, I mean, as I was saying to you earlier, I watched it on Sunday, but things kept cropping up, so I had to keep pausing the movie. So I watched it again literally a couple of hours before we started this stream, and it was still a good time. I just had it once I understood, like, this is just a character piece, just go with the flow. It was so much more enjoyable, and I couldn't help but think, man, this would make a great double bill with the New York Ripper. I feel like they're very closely related in a way.
Yeah, it's funny. It's almost as if we planned this and we didn't, because they do make a great double bill. I think this is a superior movie now that I've watched it again. And I didn't think that was going to be the case. But I think this is a superior movie just based on what you've been talking about there. The fact that it's this character study of this weird kind of character. Joe Spinell co-wrote the movie. He wrote this character. So the plot, if anybody's interested in the plot is you've got this guy who essentially it just seems like a normal kind of bloke, slightly odd, and he pick up prostitutes and kill them and lure women into a situation where he ends up killing them too. It's all because he's got mummy issues of some kind.
Yeah, a kind of Oedipal complex.
But they don't explain it. They just let you see him play it out, which is quite good. And I think is one of the reasons why people had a problem with the movie, because they don't explain it. And this was a movie that a lot of people had problems with. Again, it was like the whole, at that time, the early 80s, it was as, was it misogynistic and all that kind of stuff. I think I saw Mark Kermode do doing a review of the remake, a Maniac, and he was dissing the original, which is quite interesting. You would think it's a kind of movie that he might want to revisit and reevaluate, but no, that's not the case. I think it's one that people should revisit and reevaluate. Again, with the caveat, if you're into extreme cinema.
Yes.
But yeah, Joe Spinell, who I've got some images here. The one at the top right is, of course, from Maniac. He's kind of like surrounded by mannequins in the movie. You see him there in Star Crash, the classic Star Crash, which he was in, where he played the villain along with Caroline Munro, and of course in Rocky, where he's the mobster in the first Rocky, and he was also a hitman in The Godfather. He's one of these character actors you see turning up in lots of movies, and he's got this great face and a kind of good presence for these kind of roles, and he really kind of like sunk his teeth into this as a starring opportunity in this movie. It's odd though, because it's a very naturalistic performance.
Yes.
And it kind of jars with some of the other people in it. You can see there's a chemistry between him and Caroline Munro, but they kind of jar as well, because their styles of acting are so wildly different.
Yes. I found when I was watching it, it was so easy to focus on him. Whereas all the other surrounding cast members, including Caroline, because their styles, like everyone's style was very different to his, but his was the more appealing style. Yeah.
You could always make the argument that the whole movie plays out in his head.
Yeah.
Again, that's something that I see in a lot of movies, because But I think it does stand up as an argument in this, because it's almost unbelievable that he gets away with everything that he does.
Yeah.
And there seems to be, unlike the New York Ripper, where there's a police looking for the Ripper, there seems to be nobody really looking for him. It all plays out. It starts off with him killing a couple of people on the beach, which is the most slasher-like moment in the movie. You can imagine it in a kind of in a Jason kind of movie. Where he stabs him to death and garrotes the guy. You know, he lifts him up from the ground, his feet are dangling, that kind of stuff. And you think it's going to be just like a proper slasher movie, but it changes quite quickly after that. It's not a proper slasher movie. And most of the kills are very kind of like, wow, that's extreme. There's the lovely Caroline Munro, who plays the photographer and the only person in the movie who rather oddly treats him like a human.
Yeah.
And the only person in the movie that he kind of treats like a human as well. It's a interesting kind of dynamic that they don't really delve into, but it pays dividends on rewatches. If you watch it again, you kind of know it's coming up, and you can kind of maybe there's some subtext there to do with her reminding him of his mother or something. But I think there's something there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you see all the other characters have an interaction with him, it's almost as if he presents an aura to them and they see it straight away and they're like, okay, don't trust him, he's weird. But Caroline's character seems to have that innocence about her where she believes there's good in everyone kind of thing. Even though it's not spoken, that's just the impression that she puts across in this role.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I believe that Caroline Munro was not originally meant to be there, but she was a replacement for Daria Nicolodi, who was supposed to be in it, but was held up in Italy making a movie at the time. And so they just asked Caroline Munro to do it, and it was last minute, and she had to kind of like just jump in. And that's why she's in the movie. And she does a pretty good job considering that it's a very much a last minute thing. But I think even she was surprised at how extreme this movie was.
And I think she also did a good job, because it's the other thing that kind of like lets you know this is a character study. Normally, when a character like hers is introduced into the story, they become one of the leads.
Yeah.
But she doesn't in this one. She's kind of an ancillary character that just pops up here and there. Yeah.
And also the kind of like the way that the women are portrayed and shown in the movie is it's not in a kind of like a leering kind of way, even from the point of view of the Joe Spinell character. It's a very, when he kills him, it's a very matter-of-fact thing. It's almost like he just turns from being normal to being a killer. Like a switch goes off in his head. Third star of the movie. 3 stars in this movie.
Yes, absolutely. It's really weird. You can kind of tell Tom Savini's special effects from a mile away.
You can.
But they're so unique, and when they come up, you're just like, yes, a Savini special effect. Come on. I mean, like, I think it's the prostitute that Joe Spinell kills early on and then scalps. Like,
yes,
they don't even try to hide the fact that the blade of the Stanley knife is bending quite badly.
Yeah,
he's doing it. But you don't care because it's so well done.
It's just a visceral idea of a blade cutting through flesh, and he's very good at getting that across and doing it. And it's not just that; it's like you see in the character or the actress there with the scalp. It's not just that; it's the way that they peel the scalps back in this film too. They go that one wee step further with everything. Tom Savini in the car, he does the effect where he has his own head getting blown off, and a sequence that doesn't really fit in with the movie, but it's really good. Where Spinell jumps onto the car and blows his head off with a gun.
And it's all done in that glorious slow motion, and once the head's exploded, you see that reaction, and then we come back and they just focus on the remains of the head and the blood dripping down the back of the seat. It's so well done.
That's exactly.
I would say this is one of the top 3 head explosions by far. Scanners will always be number 1.
Yeah,
I reckon Chopping Mall. I don't know. Sometimes I would put Chopping Mall at number 3 and this at number 2, and other days I'll put it the other way round. I think they're on par.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Sometimes I get my head explosions mixed up with the decapitations. The Exterminator, that's a decapitation at the start, isn't it? Or is that a head
Yes,
explosion? That's a decapitation, because that was a good
decapitation.
one. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think it's definitely is up there. It's so obviously, you can see the fake head now in the high def. You can see, but it's such a good sort of like you can see this rubber Savini head that's obviously stuffed with everything that's going to explode. And it makes it even more fun. I think also because you can now see stuff in the high def, it makes the film slightly less disgusting, but it's still grimy and disgusting.
There's our next ranking show, Ranking Head Explosion.
That's it. Ranking head explosions of Team Dark. Boom. Certainly an art to peeling scalps. There you go. That'll get it off Facebook. He's kind of like he's proper kind of low budget outlaw with it as well, isn't he? It's like making it up as he goes along, and creating the rules.
Yeah.
Oh, I really forgot about that one.
Yes, with the basketball.
Yeah, the basketball. Definitely.
I think this head explosion just goes to show how much better practical effects are over digital. Because, yeah, sure, you could do a CGI head explosion nowadays, but it is nothing compared to the head explosion in this movie and Scanners and the other movies that we've mentioned.
There's an image at the centre there. You see Tom Savini and you see Joe Spinell with essentially what is kind of a spoiler. It comes out the grave at one point. Because this movie takes a wild turn from being a psychological study of a man who's disturbed to suddenly becoming almost a fantasy at the end. And that's what leads me to think maybe the whole movie isn't real.
I can understand that. And it's elements that take away the fact that he scalps his victims. Like, that seems to be the only part of his MO that sticks with every single kill that he does in the movie.
Yeah.
But his initial killing of them, he does in a multitude of different ways. So when you take that away, you're left with this guy that he's hearing voices in his head, especially of his mother talking to him from when he was a kid. They don't make it clear straight away. It's more later on, and it's through visual cues more than it is dialogue, that his mother was exceptionally abusive to him as a kid, and that plays a huge role in why he's doing what he's doing. The fact that we have this scene where it's almost dreamlike, but it's a real world moment, because a few seconds before we've got Caroline Munro's character in there and the mother coming out of the grave and stuff. It's bits like that make me go, how much influence did Ed Gein and his life play on this movie? Because there seems to be a lot of coincidences between the two. Not a 100% this is based off of Ed Gein, but it's things like the voices in his head, the abusive mother, the grave. It just makes me wonder.
No, I came away thinking none of it's real, because the mannequins come to life as the people that he's killed.
Yeah.
And then they rip him apart. The final shots of the movie kind of like contradict that as well. So it's all in his head, as if that's because, of course, they're not really coming to life and kill him. And I think you can take that all the way back to like the first person he kills, and you can say none of this has happened, or that's the only person he killed. I think you can take it back. I don't mean the people on the beach. I mean when he's with the prostitute and he strangles her. Because that's like a realistic scene.
Yeah, and that's the only time that when he kills someone, shortly after he kills them, he is physically sick. Whereas he's killed before the prostitute and he has no reaction like that. Whereas when he kills the prostitute, he's disgusted with himself. He can't believe that he did that. He even says, like, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't want to do that. And all the other ones, he's absolutely okay with. So it makes you wonder, is the prostitute a real murder and the rest fictional? You know, there's lots of questions that it brings up.
Yeah, isn't it? That's the first time I thought of that with the movie. It was just today. I thought, that's how I read the movie now. That's kind of like my reading of the movie. Jay Chataway did the music, and it's brilliant. The music in this film is really good. It feels as if they spent more money on the music than anything else in some ways. But he did some great scores for lots of like B movies and TV shows like Star Trek, Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and lots of Chuck Norris movies and B movies and stuff like that. And the score sort of elevates the movie a little bit out of the grindhouse.
Yes.
You know, but everything else in the movie drags it back into the grindhouse. But yeah,
Yes.
I wanted to mention Jay Chataway is kind of like one of these guys who did a lot of music for movies that you don't realise he did the music for, and did a really, really good job. Banned in the UK, not a video nasty again, but a movie that's well worth checking out if you can get a hold of an uncut copy. Doesn't matter if it's a high def copy, if it's a third generation VHS, probably watch it anyway. It's definitely worth watching. And I'm making an executive decision for the next movie that we're doing. We're doing The Evil Dead.
Yes, I am so down with this.